Private Hunter's uniform ripped as Raxor, the Illyrian female, clawed at his clothes with single-minded determination. Her attempt to forcibly mate with him had caught the human soldier off guard during his routine patrol on the alien planet. "Stop! This isn't allowed!" Hunter shouted, struggling to fend off Raxor's aggressive advances while maintaining his composure. The delicate alliance between humans and Illyrians hung in the balance, and one wrong move could shatter years of diplomatic efforts. Colonel Stark's warning about cultural misunderstandings echoed in Hunter's mind. The human military presence on Illyria, a mineral-rich planet crucial for Earth's expansion into space, was already a source of tension. This incident threatened to escalate the situation beyond control. As Hunter grappled with Raxor, alarms blared across the fortified human compound on the outskirts of the Illyrian capital. Fellow soldiers scrambled to defensive positions, anticipating potential retaliation from the local population. The risk of losing access to Illyria's valuable resources loomed large, jeopardizing humanity's future among the stars. In the Illyrian council chambers, leaders convened an emergency meeting. Confusion and anger permeated the air as they struggled to comprehend the human concept of consent. Dr. Elena Kovacs, Earth's ambassador to Illyria, attempted to bridge the cultural gap, her words falling on uncomprehending ears. Back on Earth, news of the encounter spread like wildfire. Public opinion fractured, with some demanding immediate withdrawal from Illyria, while others called for a show of strength. The incident exposed the fragility of interspecies relations and the challenges of galactic diplomacy. Hunter's mind raced as he dodged another of Raxor's lunges. He knew his actions in the next few moments could determine the fate of human-Illyrian relations. The weight of two worlds pressed down on his shoulders as he sought a way to defuse the situation without further offending his alien aggressor. Raxor's biological imperative to reproduce with genetically diverse species drove her relentless pursuit. Her lack of understanding regarding human mating practices only fueled her determination. Hunter realized that education and communication were key to preventing future incidents. But first, he had to survive this encounter. As the struggle continued, Hunter received an urgent communication. A joint human-Illyrian tribunal had been hastily assembled to address the incident. He would be required to explain his actions and face potential consequences for his handling of the situation with Raxor. The human soldier steeled himself for the challenges ahead. He knew that his ability to navigate this delicate situation would be crucial not only for his own future, but for humanity's place in the galactic community. With renewed resolve, Hunter prepared to face the tribunal, hoping to find a way to turn this potential disaster into an opportunity for greater understanding between humans and Illyrians. Hunter took a deep breath, steadying himself as he approached the imposing structure where the human-Illyrian joint tribunal awaited. The events of the past few hours had been a whirlwind, leaving him barely any time to process what had transpired between him and Raxor. As he entered the neutral zone, a stark contrast to both the utilitarian human military base and the organic architecture of the Illyrian capital, Hunter felt the weight of two worlds on his shoulders. Colonel Stark and Dr. Elena Kovacs flanked him, their presence both reassuring and nerve-wracking. The tribunal chamber buzzed with tension. 3 human representatives sat on one side, their crisp uniforms and stern expressions a stark contrast to the 3 Illyrian officials opposite them. The aliens' bioluminescent patterns pulsed with what Hunter assumed was agitation. As the proceedings began, Hunter recounted the incident with Raxor, careful to stick to the facts without editorializing. He described her aggressive advances, his attempts to defuse the situation, and his concerns about the potential diplomatic fallout. The tribunal listened intently, their expressions unreadable. Halfway through Hunter's testimony, a commotion erupted outside the chamber. The doors burst open, revealing an imposing Illyrian figure adorned with intricate, glowing patterns that outshone even the highest-ranking officials present. "High Chieftain Zorn," Dr. Kovacs whispered, her eyes wide with surprise. The Illyrian leader strode into the room, his presence commanding immediate attention. He spoke, his words translated through a device on Dr. Kovacs' wrist. "I demand to be heard in this matter," Zorn's translated voice boomed. "The female involved in this incident is my daughter, Raxor, A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Hunter felt his stomach drop. The situation had just become infinitely more complicated. Zorn continued, his alien features arranged in what might have been a mixture of pride and concern. My daughter's actions, while misunderstood by human standards, were an honor in our culture. She chose this human, Hunter, as a potential mate due to his perceived strength and adaptability, traits we Illyrians hold in high regard. The revelation sent murmurs through both human and Illyrian delegations. Hunter's mind reeled as he tried to process this new information. What he had perceived as an aggressive, non-consensual act was in fact a high honor in Illyrian society. Before the tribunal could fully absorb this information, another figure entered the chamber. Hunter's breath caught in his throat as he recognized Raxer. She moved with a grace that belied her earlier ferocity, her alien features arranged in an expression that, to Hunter's surprise, he could now interpret as a mixture of tenacity and embarrassment. Through the translator, Raxer addressed the tribunal. I chose Hunter as a potential mate, not just for his physical attributes, but for the strength of character he displayed during our encounter. I propose a diplomatic union between our species, with Hunter and me as the first to forge this bond. The chamber erupted into chaos. Human military leaders huddled together, whispering frantically about the strategic implications of such a union. The Illyrian officials seemed divided, some nodding in approval, while others chittered in what sounded like protest. As the commotion swirled around him, Hunter found his gaze locked with Raxer's. In the harsh light of the tribunal chamber, he saw her differently. The aggressive alien that had attacked him hours ago now appeared as a complex being, driven by cultural imperatives he was only beginning to understand. He was surprised to find himself intrigued by her directness and passion. The tribunal called for order, and a tense discussion ensued. The human representatives argued about the potential benefits of stronger ties with the Illyrians, while also expressing concerns about the biological and cultural challenges such a relationship would face. The Illyrian officials debated the merits of closer human integration versus the preservation of their species' uniqueness. As the deliberations stretched on, reports began filtering in from outside. Protests had erupted in both human and Illyrian settlements. Hardliners on both sides were demanding an immediate end to any form of integration between the species. The news added another layer of pressure to the already tense proceedings. After hours of heated debate, the tribunal reached a decision. The head of the human delegation stood, her voice steady as she announced their verdict. In the interest of diplomacy and the potential for unprecedented cooperation between humans and Illyrians, we propose a trial period. Private Hunter and Raxor will be allowed to pursue a relationship under strict supervision. Both parties will undergo intensive cultural training to bridge the gap between our species. The announcement sent shockwaves through the chamber. Hunter's mind spun as he tried to grasp the implications of this decision. He was no longer just a soldier on a routine patrol. He had become a representative of humanity in a groundbreaking experiment in interspecies relations. As the tribunal adjourned, Hunter found himself face-to-face with Raxor. Without the immediate threat of her aggressive advances, he noticed details he had missed before. The intricate patterns on her skin, the intelligence in her alien eyes. She reached out, her clawed hand gentle as she placed it on his arm. I look forward to learning about your ways, Hunter, Raxor said through the translator. Together, we can bridge the gap between our peoples. Hunter nodded, still processing the whirlwind of events. As he left the chamber with Raxor by his side, he knew that the real challenges were just beginning. They would face scrutiny from both species, navigate vast cultural differences, and potentially reshape the future of human-Illyrian relations. Outside, the twin suns of Illyria were setting, casting an alien glow over the landscape. Hunter took a deep breath, preparing himself for the journey ahead. With Raxor at his side, he stepped into an uncertain future, one that held the promise of either unprecedented cooperation or devastating conflict between their two species. As Hunter and Raxor left the tribunal chamber, the gravity of their new situation settled upon them. The bustling streets of the Illyrian capital, once alien and intimidating to Hunter, now held a different kind of tension. Eyes from both species followed their every move, a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and in some cases, outright hostility. "This way," Dr. Elena Kovac said, guiding them towards awaiting transport. "We're taking you to Harmony House." The sleek vehicle glided through the bioluminescent cityscape, its windows tinted to shield the occupants from prying eyes. Hunter found himself stealing glances at Raxer, her alien features no longer as foreign as they once were. She caught his gaze, her skin flickering with patterns he couldn't yet decipher. As they approached the outskirts of the city, a structure unlike any Hunter had seen before came into view. Harmony House stood as a testament to both human and Illyrian architecture, a blend of angular human design and the organic, flowing forms favored by the Illyrians. "Welcome to your new home," Dr. Kovac announced as they disembarked, "at least for the duration of this experiment." The interior of Harmony House was a marvel of bioengineering and human technology. Corridors adjusted their lighting and atmosphere as Hunter and Raxer moved through them, accommodating both species' needs. They were led to a common area where a team of human and Illyrian specialists waited. Private Hunter Raxor, a human woman in a lab coat, stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Alara Chen, lead xenobiologist for this project. We'll be overseeing your integration and documenting the process." Hunter nodded, feeling like a specimen under a microscope. Raxor chittered something in her native tongue, which Dr. Chen's translator rendered as, "We are honored to participate in this historic endeavor." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of cultural immersion and biological study. Hunter found himself struggling through lessons on Illyrian social norms, their complex system of bioluminescent communication, and the intricacies of their mating rituals. The physical displays of prowess required in Illyrian courtship left him exhausted and sore, but he pressed on, driven by a mix of duty and growing curiosity about Raxer. For her part, Raxer approached human customs with equal parts fascination and frustration. The concept of personal space baffled her, and she often found herself unconsciously drifting too close to Hunter during their interactions. Meals were particularly challenging, as she watched in horror the first time Hunter cooked food. "You destroy the nutrients?" she asked, her translator struggling to convey her dismay. Hunter couldn't help but chuckle. "We call it cooking. It's how we make food safe and, well, tasty." Their first shared meal was an exercise in mutual cultural shock. Hunter stared down at the plate of writhing, glowing invertebrates that constituted Illyrian cuisine. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the importance of this mission, and gingerly picked up one of the squirming morsels. Across the table, Raxer fumbled with a fork and knife, her clawed hands ill-suited for the delicate utensils. After several failed attempts to spear a piece of synthesized protein, she let out a frustrated trill and reached for the food with her hands. As days turned into weeks, Hunter and Raxer found themselves growing more comfortable in each other's presence. Their conversations, once stilted and formal, began to flow more naturally. Hunter found himself captivated by Raxer's quick wit and her unique perspective on the universe. Raxer, in turn, was fascinated by Hunter's adaptability and his willingness to embrace her culture. During one of their mandated bonding sessions, Hunter reached out and touched Raxer's arm, a gesture that would have been unthinkable just weeks ago. A jolt of something, not quite electrical, but equally powerful, passed between them. Hunter's vision swam for a moment, and he felt a wave of emotions that weren't entirely his own. Dr. Chen, observing from behind a one-way mirror, leaned forward with interest. "Fascinating," she muttered, making notes on her datapad. "The psychoactive effect of prolonged skin contact, it's stronger than we anticipated." As Hunter and Raxer's connection deepened, the world outside Harmony House grew increasingly tumultuous. News of their relationship had spread across both human and Illyrian societies, sparking fierce debates and protests. In the human military base, Sergeant Dax Reeves paced in front of a group of like-minded soldiers. "This experiment is a threat to everything we've worked for," he growled. "We can't let some lovesick private jeopardize our position on this planet." Meanwhile, in the Illyrian capital, Elder Kraz addressed a crowd of agitated citizens. "Our very essence is at stake," he proclaimed, his bioluminescent patterns flashing with intensity. "We cannot allow this contamination to continue. The rising tensions came to a head during Hunter and Raxor's first public appearance in the Illyrian capital. As they stepped out of their transport, a crowd of protesters surged forward. Hunter's military training kicked in instantly. He moved to shield Raxor, his body tensing for action. An Illyrian lunged towards them, a makeshift weapon raised high. Without thinking, Hunter struck out, his enhanced human strength sending the attacker flying. The crowd recoiled, then pressed forward with renewed anger. In the chaos that followed, Hunter fought to protect Raxor, his actions precise but forceful. Several Illyrians fell, injured by his defensive maneuvers. As security forces finally pushed back the crowd, Hunter looked down at his hands, the reality of what he'd done sinking in. Raxor placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, her touch sending a wave of calming emotions through their newfound connection. "You protected me," she said softly, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with what Hunter now recognized as affection. As they were rushed back to the safety of Harmony House, Hunter knew that this incident would have far-reaching consequences. The fragile balance between humans and Illyrians had been shaken, and their relationship was now at the center of a growing storm. In the aftermath of the attack, Admiral Jenna Hawthorne's ship entered Illyrian orbit. As she prepared to descend to the planet's surface, she reviewed the latest reports on Hunter and Raxor's progress. The fate of human-Illyrian relations, and possibly the future of humanity's expansion into the stars, now rested on her assessment of this unprecedented interspecies relationship. As Admiral Hawthorne's ship entered Illyrian orbit, the atmosphere at Harmony House grew tense with anticipation. Hunter and Raxor stood side by side in the main atrium, watching through the panoramic windows as the sleek human vessel descended through the swirling clouds. The iridescent patterns on Raxor's skin flickered with nervous energy, a display that Hunter found himself instinctively interpreting. "You're worried," he said softly, reaching out to touch her arm. Raxor's skin pulsed with confirmation. "The Admiral's arrival could change everything," she replied, her translator conveying the complex emotions behind her words. As the ship touched down on the landing pad outside, Dr. Chen approached them, her face a mask of professional calm. "Remember, just be yourselves. The Admiral needs to see the real progress we've made here." The main doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing Admiral Jenna Hawthorne. She strode into Harmony House with purposeful steps, her piercing gaze taking in every detail of the facility. Behind her, a team of human and Illyrian officials followed, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Private Hunter," Admiral Hawthorne said, her voice crisp and authoritative. "I've read the reports, but I need to see for myself. You and your partner will undergo a series of tests. Dr. Chen, prepare your team immediately." The next few days were a whirlwind of examinations and evaluations. Hunter found himself hooked up to various machines, his brain activity monitored as he interacted with Raxor. The scientist gasped in amazement as Hunter accurately interpreted complex Illyrian bioluminescent signals without the aid of a translator. During one particularly intense session, Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she studied the readouts on her tablet. "This is unprecedented," she muttered, her fingers flying over the screen. "Admiral, you need to see this." Admiral Hawthorne leaned in, her brow furrowing as she examined the data. "Explain," she demanded. Dr. Chen pointed to a series of brain scans. "Hunter's neural pathways are adapting, mimicking Illyrian patterns. He's developing the ability to perceive and process bioluminescent communication naturally." The implications of this discovery sent shockwaves through the facility. As word spread, tensions outside Harmony House escalated rapidly. Human protesters gathered at the military base, their angry chants echoing across the alien landscape. "Keep humanity pure," they shouted, waving signs denouncing the Harmony House experiment. Meanwhile, in the Illyrian capital, crowds of chittering aliens filled the streets, their skin flashing with patterns of fear and outrage. High Chieftain Zorn addressed his people, his bioluminescent displays projecting calm authority, even as his words betrayed his concern. "We must protect our way of life," he announced, his translator broadcasting to both species. The human influence must not be allowed to corrupt our very essence. Back at Harmony House, Raxor underwent her own battery of tests. Chief Healer Vox, a towering Illyrian with intricate bioluminescent patterns crisscrossing his skin, oversaw the examinations. His patterns flashed with increasing alarm as he studied the results. "This is most disturbing," Vox said, his translator struggling to convey the full depth of his concern. "Raxor's bioluminescent organs are showing signs of atrophy, and these dermal changes—" He gestured to patches on Raxor's skin that had taken on a distinctly human-like texture. Admiral Hawthorne frowned as she reviewed the findings. "And these changes, are they reversible?" Vox's skin pulsed with uncertainty. "Unknown. This is beyond our experience." The news of Raxor's physical changes spread quickly, fueling the growing unrest. In response to mounting pressure, High Chieftain Zorn made a difficult decision. He appeared on a planet-wide broadcast, his bioluminescent patterns somber. "For the safety of Raxor and the purity of our species, we must act," he announced. "Raxor will undergo the luminous cleansing ritual to restore her Illyrian essence." Hunter watched the broadcast with growing horror. He turned to Dr. Chen, his voice tight with concern. "What is this ritual? Is it safe?" Dr. Chen's expression was grim. "It's an ancient Illyrian practice. They believe immersion in a pool of bioluminescent microorganisms can reset their physiology. But given Raxor's unique condition, the effects are unpredictable." Without hesitation, Hunter made his decision. "I have to stop this," he said, already moving towards the exit. "Hunter, wait!" Dr. Chen called after him. "This could cause a diplomatic incident. You can't just—" But Hunter was already gone, racing towards the Illyrian temple where the ritual was to take place. As he approached the ancient structure, its bioluminescent architecture pulsing with ethereal light, he could see the gathered crowd of Illyrians. Their skin flickered with patterns of anticipation and reverence. Hunter's military training kicked in as he assessed the situation. He moved silently through the shadows, avoiding the main entrance with its heavy guard presence. Finding a less defended side entrance, he slipped inside the temple. The interior was a maze of twisting, organic corridors, all pulsing with bioluminescent light. Hunter moved cautiously, his enhanced senses alert for any sign of danger. He could hear the low, rhythmic chanting of Illyrian voices echoing through the structure. As he rounded a corner, he came face to face with an Illyrian guard. Without hesitation, Hunter struck, his movements precise and controlled. The guard went down silently, unconscious but unharmed. Hunter continued deeper into the temple, disabling several more guards along the way. He took care to use only non-lethal force, aware that any deaths could spell disaster for human-Illyrian relations. Finally, he reached the central chamber. Through a translucent, membranous wall, he could see Raxor being led towards a glowing pool. Elder Kraz stood at the edge, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with ritualistic intensity. Hunter was about to burst into the chamber when a powerful hand gripped his shoulder. He spun around, coming face to face with Elder Kraz himself. "Human," Kraz said, his translator conveying a mix of anger and grudging respect. "You dishonor our sacred temple with your presence." Hunter stood his ground, meeting the elder's gaze. "I won't let you harm Raxor," he said firmly. Kraz's skin flashed with challenge. "Then you leave me no choice. By our ancient laws, I challenge you to ritual combat." As Kraz spoke, the membranous wall became transparent, revealing the scene to the gathered Illyrians. A hush fell over the crowd as they realized what was happening. Hunter nodded, accepting the challenge. He knew that this fight would be about more than just Raxor. It would symbolize the clash between human adaptability and Illyrian tradition. The two circled each other, Hunter's combat-trained muscles coiled and ready, Kraz's alien physiology pulsing with bioluminescent energy. The fight began in earnest, a dance of human technique against Illyrian strength. Hunter ducked and weaved, avoiding Kraz's powerful blows. He retaliated with precise strikes, targeting weak points he had learned during his time with Raxor. To the amazement of the Illyrian onlookers, Hunter seemed to anticipate Kraz's movements, reading the subtle bioluminescent signals that telegraphed the Elder's intentions. The battle raged on, both combatants giving their all. Hunter's human endurance was put to the test against Kraz's alien vitality. Just as it seemed Hunter might gain the upper hand, a commotion from the pool area drew everyone's attention. Raxor had broken free from her attendants and was rushing towards the combat area. The crowd gasped in shock as they saw her clearly for the first time since her changes began. Her body now displayed a unique melding of human and Illyrian characteristics. Patches of human-like skin interspersed with dimmed bioluminescent organs. "Stop!" Raxor cried out, her voice carrying both human inflection and Illyrian harmonics. "This fight is pointless." As she stood between Hunter and Elder Kraz, the gathered crowd murmured in a mix of awe and fear. Raxor's very existence challenged everything both humans and Illyrians thought they knew about their species' compatibility. Unknown to those in the temple, this dramatic scene was being broadcast across Illyria and transmitted back to Earth. Millions watched as Raxor, a living bridge between two species, called for an end to the conflict. In orbit above Illyria, Admiral Hawthorne watched the unfolding events with a mixture of concern and fascination. She turned to her communications officer. "Get me High Chieftain Zorn immediately," she ordered. "This situation has just become far more complex than we anticipated." As the Admiral prepared for an emergency meeting that could reshape the future of human-Illyrian relations, other forces were already in motion. At the human military base, Sergeant Dax Reeves gathered a group of like-minded soldiers, their faces grim with drive. "This has gone too far," Reeves growled, checking his weapon. "We're going to extract Hunter and put an end to this alien influence once and for all." The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just the fate of Hunter and Raxor, but the future of two species. As tensions rose and different factions prepared to make their moves, the delicate balance of power on Illyria teetered on the brink of chaos. Chaos. The air crackled with tension as the standoff in the temple reached its climax. Raxor standing between Hunter and Elder Kraz, a living embodiment of the changes sweeping through both their societies. Before anyone could react further, a priority transmission cut through the tense atmosphere. Admiral Hawthorne's voice, sharp with urgency, rang out from the communication devices of both human and Illyrian officials present. "This is Admiral Hawthorne to all personnel. We are initiating an emergency summit with High Chieftain Zorn. All hostilities are to cease immediately. I repeat, cease all hostile actions." The crowd in the temple stirred, murmurs of confusion and concern rippling through the gathered Illyrians. Hunter and Raxor exchanged a glance, their unique bond allowing them to communicate without words. They knew this summit could determine the fate of their relationship and the future of human-Illyrian relations. As they made their way out of the temple, flanked by a mix of cautious Illyrian guards and bewildered human security personnel, Hunter's enhanced senses picked up fragments of urgent conversations. He overheard mentions of a neutral zone being established between the human base and Illyrian capital for the summit. The journey to Harmony House was tense, the streets lined with curious onlookers, their bioluminescent patterns flickering with a mix of fear and fascination. As they approached the facility, Dr. Chen met them at the entrance, her face drawn with worry. "Hunter, Raxor, we have a situation," she said, ushering them inside. "Sergeant Reeves and a group of soldiers are planning an unsanctioned operation against Harmony House. We need to evacuate immediately." Hunter's lips pursed. He knew Reeves, a hardliner who had always been vocal about his distrust of the Illyrians. "How much time do we have?" he asked. Dr. Chen shook her head. "Not much. They're mobilizing as we speak." Raxor's skin pulsed with tenacity. "We cannot abandon Harmony House. This place represents everything we've worked for." Hunter nodded in agreement. "We'll stay and defend it if we have to." As they quickly gathered essential data and equipment, alarms blared throughout the facility. Security feeds showed human military vehicles approaching from the east, while reports came in of Illyrian extremist groups gathering to the west. "We're caught between two fronts," Dr. Chen said, her fingers flying over a console as she initiated emergency protocols. Hunter's military training kicked in. "We need to secure the perimeter. Raxor, can you communicate with any moderate Illyrians who might help us?" Before Raxor could respond, a new voice cut through the chaos. "Perhaps I can be of assistance." They turned to see an Illyrian female standing in the doorway, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with calm assurance. Behind her stood a group of Illyrians, their postures indicating readiness but not hostility. "I am Lyra," the female Illyrian said, her translator conveying a tone of quiet strength. "We are scouts who believe in the potential of human-Illyrian cooperation. We offer our help in protecting Harmony House." Hunter and Raxor exchanged a quick glance, silently communicating their thoughts. After a moment, Hunter nodded. "We appreciate your help, Lyra. We'll need every advantage we can get." As they worked to fortify Harmony House, reports came in of the unfolding situation at the human military base. Colonel Stark's voice crackled over the comms, strained and urgent. "This is Colonel Stark. Sergeant Reeves and his faction have gone rogue. We're in lockdown, but they've managed to escape with weapons and vehicles. Be advised, they're headed your way." The news sent a ripple of tension through the defenders of Harmony House. Hunter turned to Lyra and her scouts. "We need to set up a perimeter. Can your people blend into the surrounding terrain?" Lyra's skin flickered with affirmation. "We are experts in camouflage. We'll provide early warning and misdirection." As Lyra's scouts moved out, taking up positions around Harmony House, Hunter and Raxor coordinated the internal defenses. They converted labs into fortified positions, using equipment and furniture to create makeshift barriers. Meanwhile, at the neutral zone, Admiral Hawthorne and High Chieftain Zorn sat across from each other, the atmosphere thick with tension. Dr. Chen, present as a scientific advisor, cleared her throat. "Admiral, Chieftain, there's something you need to know," she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. "Our latest findings show that the changes in Hunter and Raxor have progressed to a critical point. They've developed a symbiotic relationship. Separating them now could be fatal for both." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. Admiral Hawthorne leaned forward, her expression grave. "Are you certain about this, Doctor?" Before Dr. Chen could respond, an aide burst into the room, his face pale. "Admiral, Chieftain, we have an urgent situation. The Illyrian sacred pools are showing signs of contamination. Initial tests indicate it's related to the interaction between human biochemistry and Illyrian bioluminescent organisms." The news hit like a physical blow. High Chieftain Zorn's bioluminescent patterns flared with alarm. "This threatens the very foundation of our society," he said, his translator barely keeping up with the rapid pulses of light across his skin. As the leaders grappled with these new crises, the situation at Harmony House reached a critical point. Sergeant Reeves and his team had arrived, their vehicles forming a perimeter around the facility. Hunter watched from a reinforced window as Reeves directed his men to plant explosive charges. "They're going to try to bring down the whole building," Hunter said, his voice tight with tension. Raxor moved closer, her altered physiology allowing her to sense Hunter's increased heart rate and adrenaline levels. "What's our next move?" she asked, her human-like skin contrasting with the dimmed bioluminescent patches that remained. Before Hunter could respond, Lyra's voice came through their comms. "Human vehicles approaching from the south. It appears to be a loyalist force led by Colonel Stark." The arrival of Stark's forces added a new layer of complexity to the already volatile situation. As tensions reached a boiling point, with multiple factions converging on Harmony House, Admiral Hawthorne made a decision that would change everything. Her voice, broadcast simultaneously to human and Illyrian populations, cut through the chaos. "This is Admiral Jenna Hawthorne. In light of recent events and in the interest of transparency, I am ordering the full disclosure of all human Illyrian research findings to both our peoples. It's time we confront the full implications of our interaction." As the unprecedented flood of information began to spread, the defenders of Harmony House braced themselves for whatever would come next. The fate of two species hung in the balance, with the actions of those present poised to shape the future of interstellar relations. Relations hung in the balance, with the actions of those present poised to shape the future of interstellar cooperation. At Harmony House, the tension reached a breaking point. Hunter's enhanced senses picked up the telltale signs of Sergeant Reeves and his team preparing to detonate their explosives. He turned to Raxor, their unique bond allowing for instantaneous communication. "We need to move." "Now," Hunter said, his voice barely above a whisper. Raxor nodded, her hybrid physiology pulsing with a mix of human adrenaline and Illyrian bioluminescence. They sprinted towards the entrance, Lyra and her group close behind. As they burst through the doors, they found themselves face to face with Sergeant Reeves and his rogue soldiers. The two groups froze, weapons raised, creating a tableau of potential violence. Hunter stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Reeves, think about what you're doing. This isn't the way." Sergeant Reeves's face contorted with a mix of disgust and persistence. "Look at yourself, Hunter. You're not even human anymore. This place, this experiment, it's an abomination. It needs to be destroyed before it spreads." As Hunter opened his mouth to respond, a series of piercing shrieks filled the air. Bolts of disorienting light sliced through the night, causing both human factions to stagger. Elder Kraz emerged from the shadows, leading a group of Illyrian extremists armed with bioweapons. "Defilers!" Kraz's voice boomed, his bioluminescent patterns flashing with rage. "You corrupt our sacred pools, taint our people. No more." The situation devolved into chaos. Hunter and Raxor found themselves caught between three warring factions, each intent on destruction. They moved in perfect synchronization, their symbiotic bond allowing them to anticipate each other's actions. Hunter's tactical mind worked overtime, analyzing the battlefield. "Raxor, we need to get to those explosives. If they go off, everything we've worked for is lost." Raxor's skin pulsed in agreement. They weaved through the melee, Hunter's enhanced reflexes complementing Raxor's Illyrian strength. They reached the first explosive charge, Hunter's trained hands working quickly to disarm it, while Raxor provided cover. Lyra and her moderate Illyrians formed a defensive perimeter around Harmony House, their bodies shifting colors to blend with the environment. They fought with precision, using non-lethal tactics to subdue both human and Illyrian attackers. As the battle raged, strange phenomena began to manifest around them. The vegetation near Harmony House started to grow at an accelerated rate, bioluminescent flowers blooming in seconds. In the distance, unusual energy signatures lit up the night sky. Aboard a swift transport, Admiral Hawthorne and High Chieftain Zorn watched the unfolding chaos through live feeds. The Admiral's face was grim as she turned to the Illyrian leader. "We're out of time," she said. "If we don't act now, we'll lose everything." Zorn's bioluminescent patterns pulsed in agreement. "Then we act together, Admiral, for the sake of both our peoples." As their transport touched down at Harmony House, the joint peacekeeping force they had assembled rushed out, forming a barrier between the warring factions. The sight of humans and Illyrians working in tandem momentarily stunned the combatants into silence. Admiral Hawthorne's voice, amplified by both human and Illyrian technology, cut through the night. "All forces, stand down immediately. By joint order of Earth Command and the Illyrian High Council, this conflict is over." The fighting sputtered to a halt, all eyes turning to the unprecedented alliance before them. Hawthorne continued, her voice steady but urgent. "We've received Dr. Chen's latest findings. The symbiosis between humans and Illyrians has progressed further than we ever anticipated. The changes we're seeing aren't just affecting individuals like Hunter and Raxor, they're beginning to alter Illyria itself." As if to emphasize her point, a nearby patch of soil erupted with rapidly growing, bioluminescent vegetation. The assembled crowd watched in awe as the plants twisted and intertwined, forming patterns that seemed to pulse with both human and Illyrian characteristics. High Chieftain Zorn stepped forward, his luminescence dimmed in a show of solemnity. "Our peoples stand at a crossroads. The path we choose now will determine not just our own fates, but the very future of Illyria." The moment of unity was shattered by a desperate cry. "No, I won't let this happen!" Sergeant Reeves broke from the crowd, sprinting toward the last set of explosives with a detonator in hand. Hunter and Raxor moved as one, their bodies blurring with speed. They intercepted Reeves just as his finger hovered over the trigger. In a display of their newfound abilities, Hunter's reflexes allowed him to knock the detonator away, while Raxor used her bioluminescent organs to emit a pulse that temporarily disoriented Reeves. As they subdued the rogue sergeant, the gathered humans and Illyrians watched in stunned silence. The scene before them, a hybrid human-Illyrian pair working in perfect harmony, was a living testament to the potential of their combined species. Admiral Hawthorne seized the moment. This is what we can achieve together. Yes, there are risks and unknowns, but there's also incredible potential. We need to face these changes head-on with unity and purpose. She turned to Dr. Alara Chen, who had arrived with Colonel Stark's rapid response team. Doctor, we're going to need your expertise more than ever. We're forming a joint human-Illyrian scientific task force to study these changes and find a way to stabilize them. Dr. Chen nodded, her eyes alight with the prospect of groundbreaking research. I'll start assembling a team immediately. With both human and Illyrian scientists working together, we might be able to unlock secrets neither of us could discover alone. As the immediate crisis subsided, Hunter and Raxor found themselves at the center of attention. Their bodies, now visibly transformed by their symbiotic bond, stood as living proof of the changes sweeping through both their species. Hunter looked at Raxor, their silent communication conveying volumes. They both knew that their journey was not nearly finished. As key subjects in the study of human-Illyrian symbiosis, they would play a crucial role in shaping the future of both their peoples. The first rays of Illyria's sun began to peek over the horizon, casting a new light on the assembled crowd. Humans and Illyrians alike looked out at the changing landscape, aware that they were standing at the dawn of a new era. The challenges ahead were immense, but so too was the potential for growth and discovery. As Admiral Hawthorne and High Chieftain Zorn began to outline their plans for the Joint Scientific Task Force, Hunter and Raxor moved to join Dr. Chen. They knew that their unique bond would be crucial in understanding the rapidly evolving symbiosis between humans and Illyrians. The fate of two species hung in the balance, but for the first time since the crisis began, there was a palpable sense of hope in the air. The path forward would be neither easy nor straightforward, but it was one they would walk together. Together, united in purpose, despite their differences. In the weeks following the crisis at Harmony House, the landscape of Illyria underwent a transformation more profound than any in recorded history. The Joint Human-Illyrian Scientific Task Force, under the leadership of Dr. Alara Chen and Chief Healer Vox, established a new research facility on the outskirts of the Illyrian capital. This state-of-the-art complex, christened Convergence Center, became the focal point of efforts to understand and manage the rapidly evolving symbiosis between humans and Illyrians. Hunter and Raxor found themselves at the heart of this scientific endeavor. As the first successful human-Illyrian symbiotic pair, they were relocated to Convergence Center for intensive study. The facility's sleek architecture blended human and Illyrian design elements, a physical manifestation of the two species' growing interconnectedness. On their first day at the center, Hunter and Raxor stood before a team of eager scientists, their bodies a canvas of change. Hunter's skin now bore faint, phosphorescent patterns, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. Raxor's formerly fluid form had taken on a more defined structure, her movements carrying a new, human-like precision. Dr. Chen approached them, her eyes alight with scientific curiosity. "We'll be conducting a series of tests to map the extent of your physiological changes," she explained, gesturing to a chamber filled with advanced scanning equipment. "Are you ready to begin?" Hunter nodded, sharing a glance with Raxor. Their silent communication had grown more nuanced, transcending the need for words. As they entered the chamber, a hum of energy filled the air, and holographic displays flickered to life around them. The test revealed astonishing developments. Hunter's body had begun developing rudimentary bioluminescent organs, clusters of specialized cells capable of producing light. Raxor's skeletal structure showed signs of increased density, mimicking human bone structure while retaining Illyrian flexibility. As days turned into weeks, Convergence Center buzzed with activity. News of the groundbreaking research spread, attracting a wave of human volunteers eager to participate in symbiosis experiments. Among them was Captain Marcus Reed, a charismatic officer whose arrival caused a stir among both human and Illyrian staff. Reed's voice carried through the main atrium as he addressed a group of researchers. "Imagine the possibilities," he said, his eyes gleaming with ambition. "Enhanced strength, bioluminescent communication, adaptive physiology. We stand on the brink of a new era of human capability. His words resonated with many, but also sparked debate. Dr. Chen and Chief Healer Vox exchanged concerned glances, aware of the delicate balance they needed to maintain. Outside the controlled environment of Convergence Center, Illyria itself was changing. The contamination of the sacred pools had triggered a cascade of ecological shifts. In a valley near the capital, Hunter and Raxor stood with a team of environmental scientists, witnessing the emergence of new life forms. Bioluminescent flora sprouted from previously barren soil, their tendrils reaching towards the alien sky. A creature resembling a cross between an earth fox and an Illyrian glowworm scampered past, its fur emitting pulses of light as it solved a puzzle-like growth to access food. "The rate of mutation is unprecedented," one of the scientists murmured, her voice a mix of awe and trepidation. The rapid changes didn't go unnoticed by Illyrian leadership. High Chieftain Zorn, his bioluminescent patterns dimmed with concern, sought audience with the reclusive Illyrian elders. In a chamber deep beneath the capital, Zorn stood before beings of pure light, their forms terrifying within physical bodies. "Honored elders," Zorn's voice echoed in the cavernous space, "our world stands at a crossroads. I seek your wisdom in these unprecedented times." The eldest among them, a being named Ixora, spoke in a voice that seemed to bypass sound entirely. "What you witness now, young chieftain, is not without precedent. In the deep past of our world, a similar convergence occurred. It led to an age of wonders, and then to ruin." Zorn's patterns flashed with alarm. "How can we prevent such a catastrophe?" "The path forward is not clear," Ixora responded, "but it lies in balance, neither rejecting the change nor rushing headlong into it." As Illyrian leadership grappled with these revelations, Earth faced its own turmoil. The Global Council convened in an emergency session, the chamber filled with heated debate. "We cannot allow this contamination to spread," one counselor argued, his face flushed. "The purity of the human race is at stake." Another countered, "This could be the greatest leap forward in human evolution since we left Earth's cradle. We'd be fools to squander this opportunity." Admiral Hawthorne, attending via holographic projection, raised her hand for silence. "We need more data before making any irreversible decisions. I'm dispatching a team of our top scientists to bolster the research efforts on Illyria." Back at Convergence Center, Hunter and Raxor's bond continued to deepen and evolve. During a routine test, Hunter suddenly found himself perceiving the world through an explosion of color and light. He realized he was seeing through Raxor's bioluminescent senses, experiencing the world as an Illyrian for the first time. Simultaneously, Raxor felt her mind expand, human-like cognitive patterns emerging alongside her Illyrian consciousness. Together, they began to perceive aspects of their environment that had been invisible to both species individually. Dr. Chen watched in fascination as Hunter's skin illuminated with complex patterns, mirroring Raxor's bioluminescent communication. "Incredible," she breathed. "They're developing a completely new form of language." As exciting as these developments were, they came with a dark side. Reports began to trickle in of failed symbiosis attempts, resulting in severe physiological rejections. Admiral Hawthorne, recognizing the potential for disaster, implemented strict protocols and ordered the construction of a quarantine facility. The atmosphere at Convergence Center grew tense as the stakes of their work became clear. In a quiet moment between tests, Hunter and Raxor stood at a window overlooking the Illyrian landscape, the horizon shimmering with new forms of bioluminescent life. "Do you ever wonder," Hunter asked softly, his skin pulsing with gentle light, "if we're moving too fast, if we're changing too much?" Raxor's form shifted, patterns of light and shadow playing across her surface. "Change is the nature of life," she responded, her voice carrying new depths of understanding. "The question is not whether we change, but how we direct that change." As they stood there, their unique forms silhouetted against the alien sky, the future of both their species hung in the balance. The work at Convergence Center would shape not just human-Illyrian relations, but the very definition of what it meant to be human or Illyrian. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with both promise and peril, as two civilizations stood on the brink of becoming something entirely new. As Hunter and Raxer contemplated the uncertain future before them, the research at Convergence Center entered a new phase of intensity. The symbiotic pair's bond deepened with each passing day, their physiological changes accelerating at an unprecedented rate. One morning, as they prepared for their daily battery of tests, Hunter noticed something different about his skin. Faint, luminous patterns had begun to emerge, pulsing softly in rhythm with his heartbeat. He held out his arm, marveling at the subtle glow. "Raxer, look at this," he said, his voice a mix of wonder and apprehension. Raxer moved closer, her form shifting with a new fluidity. As she examined Hunter's arm, he noticed that her own body had changed as well. Her once amorphous shape now bore a striking resemblance to human musculature, allowing for more precise movements. Dr. Ilara Chen entered the room, her eyes widening at the sight before her. "Fascinating," she breathed, immediately pulling out a handheld scanner. "These changes are happening faster than we anticipated." As Dr. Chen recorded her observations, a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. Admiral Hawthorne strode into the room, her face etched with concern. Behind her, a man in a pristine lab coat followed, his eyes gleaming with hardly restrained excitement. "Hunter, Raxer, this is Dr. Victor Saunders," Admiral Hawthorne said, her tone clipped. "He has a proposal for you." Dr. Saunders stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the symbiotic pair. "Your transformations are remarkable," he said, circling them like a predator sizing up its prey. "But we've only scratched the surface of your potential. I believe more invasive experiments could unlock the full extent of your symbiosis." Hunter felt a wave of unease wash over him, sensing Raxer's discomfort through their mental link. Before he could respond, Admiral Hawthorne interjected. "I've denied Dr. Saunders' request for these experiments," she said firmly. "The ethical implications are—" Her words were cut short by the sudden blaring of alarms throughout the facility. Screens around the room flashed to life, displaying seismic readings from across Illyria. The planet's crust was shifting at an alarming rate, threatening both human and Illyrian settlements. As chaos erupted in the control room, High Chieftain Zorn arrived, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with urgency. "The contamination of the sacred pools has destabilized Illyria's core," he announced, his voice grave. "Our elders believe there may be a solution, but it requires a great sacrifice." All eyes turned to Hunter and Raxer as Zorn explained the ancient ritual known as the Convergence of Essences. The procedure would immerse the symbiotic pair in a mixture of Illyrian sacred pool water and human genetic material, potentially creating a living link between the two species and the planet itself. "It's too dangerous," Dr. Chen protested, her face pale with concern. "We have no idea how their bodies will react to such a procedure." Hunter and Raxer exchanged a long look, their silent communication conveying volumes. After a moment, Hunter spoke for both of them. "We'll do it," he said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "If there's a chance we can save Illyria, we have to try." As preparations for the ritual began, Captain Marcus Reed watched from the shadows, his mind racing with possibilities. Slipping away from the commotion, he gathered a group of like-minded human volunteers. "This is our chance," he whispered fervently. "While they're distracted, we can push forward with our own symbiosis experiments." In a hidden facility on the outskirts of the human settlement, Reed and his followers began their unsanctioned procedures, using data gleaned from Hunter and Raxer's earlier tests. Back at Convergence Center, a secure chamber had been hastily converted for the Convergence of Essences ritual. Hunter and Raxer stood at the edge of a pool filled with glowing, viscous liquid. The air hummed with energy as Illyrian elders chanted in their ancient tongue. "Are you ready?" Hunter asked, his newly luminescent skin pulsing with anxiety. Raxor's form rippled in response. "Together," she said simply. They stepped into the pool, the strange liquid enveloping them. As they submerged fully, their vital signs began to fluctuate wildly. Dr. Chen and Chief Healer Vox rushed to stabilize them, combining human medical technology with Illyrian healing techniques in a desperate effort to keep the pair alive. Outside the facility, Illyria itself seemed to be holding its breath. The bioluminescent flora that had been spreading across the planet suddenly accelerated its growth, engulfing entire forests in a matter of hours. Illyrian wildlife began to exhibit startling new behaviors, with some species forming complex social structures and using rudimentary tools. As the ritual reached its climax, Hunter and Raxor's bodies emitted an intense burst of bioluminescent energy. The pulse resonated deep within Illyria's core, temporarily stabilizing the seismic activity, but it also triggered a planet-wide response from the altered flora and fauna. Swarms of glowing insects converged on Convergence Center, forming intricate, swirling patterns in the sky. The ground trembled as herds of transformed Illyrian creatures approached, drawn by the energy emanating from the ritual chamber. Inside, Hunter and Raxor emerged from the liquid, their bodies radically transformed. Hunter's skin now pulsed with complex, ever-changing bioluminescent patterns, while Raxor's form had become distinctly more humanoid. As they opened their eyes, both gasped in unison. "I can hear them," Hunter whispered, his voice filled with awe. "The animals, the plants, I can feel the planet itself." Raxor nodded, her new features expressing a mix of wonder and concern. "We are connected to everything now," she said, "but the changes, they're still happening, and they're spreading faster than ever." As news of the ritual's apparent success spread, the Global Council on Earth convened an emergency session. The unprecedented changes on Illyria sparked heated debates about the future of human-alien relations and the potential consequences of continued symbiotic experiments. On Illyria, Hunter and Raxor stood at the heart of a rapidly evolving world. Their unique abilities offered hope for navigating this new reality, but they also faced the monumental task of bridging the growing divide between those who embraced the changes and those who feared them. As they stepped out of the ritual chamber, hand in hand, they were met with a sea of anxious faces, human and Illyrian alike. The weight of two species' futures rested on their shoulders, and the true test of their newfound powers was only just beginning. The air around them crackled with energy, and the gathered crowd watched in awe as Hunter and Raxor's bioluminescent patterns pulsed in sync with the planet's rhythms. Dr. Alara Chen approached the pair cautiously, her handheld scanner whirring as it processed the data from their transformed bodies. "How do you feel?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Hunter flexed his fingers, watching as ripples of light cascaded down his arm. "It's overwhelming," he said. "I can sense everything. The trees, the animals, even the rocks beneath our feet. It's all connected." Raxor nodded, her newly humanoid features expressing a mix of wonder and concern. "The planet is in turmoil," she added. "We can feel its pain, its struggle to adapt to the changes." Admiral Hawthorne stepped forward, her face set in a determined expression. "We need to harness this connection," she said. "If you can truly communicate with Illyria's ecosystem, we might have a chance to stabilize the situation." As if on cue, Dr. Victor Saunders pushed his way through the crowd, his eyes gleaming with impossibly strong excitement. "Admiral," he said, "I have a proposal. We need to conduct field experiments immediately to test the full extent of their abilities." Hawthorne's brow furrowed as she considered the scientist's words. After a moment of tense silence, she nodded. "Approved, but with strict oversight. We can't afford any more unforeseen consequences." As preparations for the field experiments began, a new face arrived at Convergence Center. Dr. Lyra Vex, a tall woman with piercing green eyes and a shock of silver hair, stepped off the transport shuttle. Her reputation as Earth's foremost xenobiologist preceded her, and she wasted no time in making her presence known. "Fascinating," Dr. Vex murmured as she observed Hunter and Raxor from across the room. "The level of physiological integration is unprecedented. I must begin my studies at once." While the research team at Convergence Center grappled with these new developments, a crisis was unfolding elsewhere on Illyria. In a hidden facility on the outskirts of the human settlement, Captain Marcus Reed's unsanctioned symbiosis experiments had taken a dark turn. Alarms blared as medical staff rushed to stabilize volunteers writhing in agony, their bodies rejecting the forced symbiosis. Reed stood in the center of the chaos, his face pale with shock. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he whispered, watching as one volunteer's skin erupted in angry, glowing welts. News of the rogue experiments reached Admiral Hawthorne within hours. Her voice tight with fury, she ordered an immediate lockdown of Reed's facility. "Colonel Stark," she barked into her comm unit, "assemble a joint human-Illyrian security team, contain the situation and provide emergency medical assistance." As Stark's team raced to the hidden facility, tensions on Illyria reached a boiling point. In the capital city, High Chieftain Zorn faced a growing crowd of angry Illyrians led by Elder Kraz. Their bioluminescent patterns flashed in agitated rhythms as they demanded an end to human interference. "Our world is changing beyond recognition," Kraz shouted, his form pulsing with indignation. "We must put a stop to these experiments before it's too late." Zorn raised his hands, attempting to calm the crowd. "I understand your fears," he said, his own patterns emitting soothing waves of light. "But we must not act rashly. The humans have brought us both challenges and opportunities." Back at Convergence Center, Hunter and Raxor approached Admiral Hawthorne with a daring proposal. "We can feel the planet's distress," Hunter explained, his skin flickering with urgency. "But we think we can help. If we create a network of symbiotic nodes across Illyria, we might be able to regulate the seismic activity and manage the spread of the altered ecosystem." Dr. Chen and Chief Healer Vox exchanged glances before nodding in agreement. "We can design specialized chambers to amplify their energy signature," Chen said. "It could work, but the strain on Hunter and Raxor would be significant." Despite the risks, preparations for the first symbiotic node began immediately. As Hunter and Raxor stepped into the specially designed chamber, the air around them began to shimmer. They clasped hands, their combined bioluminescence growing brighter, until it was almost painful to look at. A low hum filled the air as the node activated. Outside, the ground stopped trembling, and the frenzied movements of the altered wildlife calmed. For a moment, it seemed as if all of Illyria held its breath. Then, with a final pulse of energy, the node stabilized. Hunter and Raxor stumbled out of the chamber, their forms dimmed and their movements sluggish. "It worked," Hunter gasped before collapsing into Dr. Chen's arms. As news of the successful node activation spread, the Global Council on Earth convened an emergency session. The potential of this new technology was clear, but so were the risks. "We need to expand the network," one counselor argued. "It could be the key to saving Illyria and advancing our own understanding of symbiotic relationships." Others were more cautious. "What about the long-term effects?" another counselor countered. "We're talking about fundamental changes to an entire planet's ecosystem, not to mention the strain on the human-Illyrian hybrids." As the debate raged on, Dr. Lyra Vex made a startling discovery. Analyzing data from the symbiotic node, she found patterns that matched energy signatures from ancient Illyrian artifacts. "This isn't new," she breathed, her eyes wide with realization. "It's old, very old. We might be tapping into something that's been part of Illyria since the beginning." The implications of this discovery hung in the air, adding yet another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. As plans for expanding the node network moved forward, questions about Illyria's past and the true nature of the symbiosis loomed large. In the forest surrounding Convergence Center, a group of transformed Illyrian creatures gathered. Their movements were purposeful, coordinated in a way that spoke of a newfound intelligence. As they began to construct rudimentary shelters using fallen branches and leaves, it became clear that the changes on Illyria were nowhere near the end. Hunter and Raxor, still recovering from the strain of activating the first node, watched the creatures from a window in the medical bay. "What have we started?" Hunter asked softly, his bioluminescent patterns dim but steady. Raxor's form shifted, her newly acquired human features creased with concern. "I don't know," she replied. "But whatever it is, we're all part of it now. Humans, Illyrians, and everything in between." As night fell on Illyria, the glow of the symbiotic node pulsed gently, a beacon of hope and a harbinger of change. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. The relationship between humans, Illyrians, and their shared world would never be the same again. As dawn broke over Illyria, the glow of the first symbiotic node pulsed steadily, a testament to Hunter and Raxor's successful efforts. The pair, still recovering in the medical bay, watched as teams of researchers and engineers bustled about, preparing for the expansion of the network. Dr. Alara Chen approached their beds, her eyes scanning the data on her tablet. "Your vital signs are stabilizing," she said, a hint of relief in her voice. "How are you feeling?" Hunter flexed his fingers, watching the intricate patterns of light dance across his skin. "Better," he replied, his voice stronger than before. "But I can feel the planet calling. It's like a constant hum in the back of my mind." Raxer nodded, her newly humanoid features creasing with concentration. "The changes are accelerating," she added. "We need to establish more nodes quickly." As if on cue, Admiral Hawthorne entered the room, her face set in a determined expression. "We're ready to proceed with the next phase," she announced. "But I need to know if you're up for it. The strain on your systems will be significant." Hunter and Raxer exchanged a glance, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in unison. "We're ready," they said in unison. Over the next few weeks, the symbiotic node network expanded rapidly across Illyria. Hunter and Raxer worked tirelessly, their unique abilities pushed to the limit as they established and maintained each new node. With every activation, their connection to the planet deepened, and their physical transformations accelerated. Hunter's bioluminescent patterns grew more intricate, swirling across his skin in complex, ever-changing designs that seemed to reflect the very essence of Illyria. Raxer's form continued to adapt, blending human and Illyrian physiologies in ways that fascinated and concerned the medical team in equal measure. Dr. Chen and Chief Healer Vox worked around the clock, monitoring the hybrid pair's health and developing new treatments to manage the side effects of their constant connection to the planet. "Their cellular structure is changing at an unprecedented rate," Dr. Chen murmured as she studied a holographic display of their latest test results. Vox nodded, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with concern. "We must find a way to stabilize them," he said. "Their bodies cannot withstand this level of transformation indefinitely." As the node network grew, so did the strain on Hunter and Raxer. After activating the fifth node, they stumbled out of the chamber, their forms dimmed and movement sluggish. Dr. Chen rushed to their side, her scanner whirring as it processed their vital signs. "We need to rest," Hunter gasped, leaning heavily on Raxer for support. "But there's no time. The planet, it's changing so fast." Indeed, the effects of the expanding node network were visible across Illyria. The altered ecosystem spread rapidly, with bioluminescent flora engulfing entire regions in a matter of days. Transformed wildlife exhibited increasingly complex behaviors, forming intricate social structures and utilizing tools in ways that astounded human and Illyrian observers alike. At Convergence Center, tensions simmered as Captain Marcus Reed was placed under house arrest for his unauthorized experiments. The human volunteers who had undergone symbiosis under his guidance began to exhibit unstable abilities, causing concern among the research team. Dr. Lyra Vex, the newly arrived xenobiologist, found herself at the center of a startling discovery. Analyzing data from the symbiotic nodes, she uncovered patterns that matched energy signatures from ancient Illyrian artifacts. "This goes beyond simple similarity," she explained to a rapt audience of researchers. "The nodes appear to be activating dormant systems within these artifacts." As if to confirm her findings, a series of unexpected phenomena began to occur across Illyria. Ancient structures, long thought to be simple ruins, started to emit energy pulses that interacted with the symbiotic nodes. These pulses triggered rapid terraforming effects, accelerating the already swift changes to Illyria's ecosystem. High Chieftain Zorn, alarmed by these developments, called an emergency council with the Illyrian elders. In a chamber lit by the soft glow of bioluminescent fungi, they revealed an ancient prophecy that sent ripples of shock through the assembled leaders. "The essence of two worlds shall merge," Elder Kraz intoned, his form pulsing with the gravity of his words, awakening the slumbering heart of Illyria. The implications of this prophecy hung heavy in the air, adding yet another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Admiral Hawthorne, recognizing the potential for both great advancement and catastrophic disaster, implemented stricter protocols for the expansion of the symbiotic node network. "We need to understand what we're dealing with," she said, addressing a joint team of human and Illyrian researchers. "I'm creating a task force to investigate and manage the activation of these ancient structures. We need to stay ahead of these changes." As the task force began its work, a new face arrived at Convergence Center. Dr. Aaron Mercer, a brilliant human archaeologist specializing in alien civilizations, stepped off the transport shuttle, his eyes wide with excitement as he took in the transformed landscape of Illyria. "Fascinating," he breathed, watching as a swarm of glowing insects formed complex, geometric patterns in the air. "I've never seen anything like this." Hunter and Raxer, drawn by their deepening connection to Illyria, approached Dr. Mercer as he settled into his new lab. "We want to help," Hunter said, his skin pulsing with perseverance. "Our abilities, they might be useful in exploring these activated structures." Dr. Mercer studied the hybrid pair with intense curiosity. "Yes," he said slowly, a smile spreading across his face. "I believe they might be essential." As the trio prepared for their first expedition to an activated Illyrian ruin, the transformed wildlife continued to exhibit increasingly advanced behaviors. Entire ecosystems reorganized themselves around the ancient sites, with different species forming complex symbiotic relationships that mirrored the bond between Hunter and Raxer. The Global Council on Earth, receiving reports of these unprecedented developments, dispatched a team of elite scientists and military personnel to assess the situation. Their arrival added another layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere on Illyria. Amidst this chaos, Hunter, Raxer, and Dr. Mercer set out to explore the nearest activated structure. As they approached the ancient building, its surface began to pulse with a soft blue light that resonated with Hunter and Raxer's bioluminescent patterns. "Incredible," Dr. Mercer whispered, his hand hovering over the glowing surface. "It's responding to your presence." Hunter placed his palm against the structure, and a previously invisible door slid open with a soft hiss. The trio exchanged glances, then stepped into the unknown, the fate of two worlds hanging in the balance, as they ventured deeper into Illyria's ancient mysteries. As they ventured deeper into the ancient structure, the air grew thick with an electric charge, causing the hairs on their arms to stand on end. Suddenly, the chamber before them erupted in a brilliant display of light. A massive crystalline structure dominated the center of the room, pulsing with an otherworldly energy that seemed to call out to Hunter and Raxer. "What is this?" Dr. Mercer breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. Before either Hunter or Raxer could respond, tendrils of energy shot out from the crystal, enveloping them in a cocoon of light. Their bodies went rigid, eyes glazing over as their minds were flooded with a torrent of information. Visions of Illyria's past flashed before their eyes. Ancient civilizations rising and falling, the planet's ecosystem evolving through eons. Glimpses of possible futures intertwined with these memories, showing worlds where humans and Illyrians lived in perfect harmony, and others where conflict tore the planet apart. As Hunter and Raxer struggled to process this overwhelming influx of information, the crystal's energy intensified. Their bodies began to pulse with bioluminescent patterns that matched the rhythm of the crystal, creating a visible connection between them and the planet itself. The sudden surge of power sent tremors rippling through the underground network. Dr. Mercer stumbled, bracing himself against a nearby wall. "We need backup," he muttered, fumbling for his communicator. Within minutes, Admiral Hawthorne and High Chieftain Zorn had assembled a team, including Dr. Alara Chen and Chief Healer Vox. They rushed to the chamber, their faces etched with concern as they took in the scene before them. "By the ancestors," Zorn whispered, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with awe and fear. Dr. Chen immediately set to work, her medical scanner whirring as she assessed Hunter and Raxer's condition. "Their vital signs are all over the place," she reported, her voice tight with worry. "We need to stabilize them somehow." Chief Healer Vox moved to assist, his hands hovering over the hybrid pair as he channeled his own energy to support their strained systems. "They're linked to the planet now," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of wonder and concern. "I've never seen anything like this." As the team worked to stabilize Hunter and Raxer, the effects of their connection to the crystal began to manifest across Illyria. The symbiotic node network pulsed with newfound power, triggering rapid terraforming events across the planet's surface. Vast stretches of barren land transformed before their eyes, lush forests of bioluminescent flora sprouting from once lifeless soil. The planet's atmosphere shifted, becoming more hospitable to both human and Illyrian physiology. Admiral Hawthorne's communicator buzzed with incoming reports from across the planet. "Sir, we're seeing unprecedented changes in the ecosystem," a voice crackled through the device. "The transformed wildlife is behaving strangely. They're converging on the activated ancient structures." Outside the chamber, swarms of flying creatures formed intricate, swirling patterns in the sky. Herds of land-based animals organized themselves into complex formations around the sites, creating a living network that seemed to amplify the effects of the symbiotic nodes. As news of these events spread, tensions among the Illyrian and human populations reached a boiling point. Elder Kraz and his group of traditionalist Illyrians, viewing the rapid changes as a threat to their way of life, launched a series of attacks on key symbiotic node installations. Alarms blared throughout Convergence Center as reports of the attacks flooded in. Admiral Hawthorne's face hardened as she issued rapid-fire orders to mobilize human security forces. "Protect those nodes at all costs," she commanded. High Chieftain Zorn, recognizing the need for unity in the face of this crisis, made a bold decision. "I'm ordering the Illyrian Guard to work alongside the human forces," he announced, his voice firm. "We must defend our shared future." As chaos unfolded across the planet, the situation in the crystal chamber grew increasingly dire. Hunter and Raxor's bodies showed signs of severe strain, their cells beginning to break down under the immense pressure of their connection to the ancient technology. Dr. Chen and Chief Healer Vox worked tirelessly, their hands moving in perfect synchronization as they fought to keep the hybrid pair alive. "We need to find a way to disconnect them safely," Dr. Chen said, her voice tight with urgency. "Their bodies can't take much more of this." Amidst the frantic activity, Dr. Lyra Vex hunched over a console, her eyes darting across streams of data as she worked to decipher the energy patterns emanating from the crystal. Suddenly, her eyes widened in realization. "It's a test," she breathed, her voice barely audible above the hum of equipment. "This whole process, it's a test set in motion by an ancient Illyrian civilization." All eyes in the chamber turned to her as she continued, her words tumbling out in a rush of excitement and fear. They wanted to see if different species could work together to shepherd a planet through a massive evolutionary leap. Everything that's happening, it's all part of their plan. The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Admiral Hawthorne and High Chieftain Zorn exchanged a loaded glance, the weight of their next decision palpable in the charged atmosphere of the chamber. As they grappled with this newfound knowledge, a commotion outside the chamber drew their attention. Captain Marcus Reed, his face flushed with a mix of desperation and willpower, burst into the room, followed by a group of his supporters. "We can't stop now," he declared, his eyes wild as he took in the scene before him. "This is humanity's chance for true advancement. We have to see it through, no matter the consequences." The chamber erupted into chaos as arguments broke out between the various factions. Hunter and Raxor remained suspended in their trance-like state, their bodies pulsing with energy as the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Outside, the planet continued its rapid transformation, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. As all parties prepared to make their final moves, the future of Illyria, and the very concept of interspecies cooperation, remained uncertain, poised on the knife's edge of possibility. Poised on the knife's edge of discovery and destruction. In the midst of the heated debate, Dr. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "We're losing them," she shouted, her hands moving frantically over her medical scanner. "Hunter and Raxor's vital signs are critical. We need to act now." Admiral Hawthorne and High Chieftain Zorn exchanged a brief, loaded glance. In that moment, they reached a silent agreement, their years of leadership experience guiding them to a difficult but necessary decision. "Begin the disconnection process," Admiral Hawthorne ordered, her voice firm despite the gravity of the situation. High Chieftain Zorn nodded, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with a mix of concern and dedication. "Do what you must to save them," he added, addressing Dr. Chen and Chief Healer Vox. The two medical experts moved into action, their hands working in perfect synchronization as they began the delicate process of severing the energy link between Hunter, Raxor, and the ancient crystal structure. The air crackled with tension as they carefully manipulated the flow of energy, their faces etched with concentration. Just as they initiated the procedure, the chamber door burst open with a resounding crash. Captain Marcus Reed stormed in, followed by a group of his supporters, their eyes wild with a mixture of desperation and misguided zeal. "Stop!" Reed shouted, his voice echoing off the chamber walls. "You can't end this now. We're on the brink of something extraordinary." Before anyone could react, Reed lunged forward, pushing past the startled onlookers. In a reckless move born of desperation, he reached out and placed his hand directly on the pulsing crystal surface. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. A massive surge of energy erupted from the crystal, filling the chamber with blinding light. Dr. Chen and Chief Healer Vox were thrown backward, their careful work disrupted by the sudden influx of power. As the light faded and vision slowly returned, all eyes turned to Hunter and Raxor. The hybrid pair remained suspended in their energy cocoon, but something had changed. Their bodies pulsed with an intensity that hadn't been present before, their bioluminescent patterns shifting and swirling in complex, mesmerizing ways. Dr. Lyra Vex, who had been monitoring the energy readings, gasped in astonishment. "The connection, it's stronger now," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. "Reed's actions have somehow intensified the link between Hunter, Raxor, and the crystal." As if in response to her words, Hunter and Raxor's eyes snapped open simultaneously. Their gaze was unfocused at first, but quickly sharpened with a newfound clarity. The chamber fell silent as everyone waited, breath held, for what would happen next. When Hunter spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, resonating with an otherworldly quality. "We understand now," he said, his words overlapping with Raxor's in perfect unison. "We see the true purpose of the symbiosis." Their combined consciousness, bolstered by the crystal's power, began to share the visions they had experienced. Images flickered in the air around them, showing glimpses of a future where the boundaries between species blurred and faded. They saw a galaxy teeming with hybrid life forms, each one a bridge between different worlds and ways of being. "The symbiosis isn't just about transforming Illyria," Raxor continued, her voice blending seamlessly with Hunter's. "It's about creating a new form of life capable of uniting the galaxy." As they spoke, the energy surrounding them intensified. The crystal pulsed with increasing frequency, its light spreading through the underground network and racing towards the surface. Above ground, the symbiotic nodes began to glow in response, creating a web of light that stretched across the planet. Hunter and Raxor turned their gaze to the assembled group, their eyes glowing with an inner fire. "We are the key," they said in unison. "Through us, the transformation can be completed. But we must act now, while the connection is at its strongest." With those words, they focused their combined will on the crystal. The chamber filled with a light so bright it seemed to bend reality itself. Energy cascaded through the underground network and erupted from the symbiotic nodes on the surface, enveloping all of Illyria in a cocoon of pulsing, multicolored light. As the planet-wide transformation reached its crescendo, Hunter and Raxor's physical forms began to shimmer and dissolve. Their bodies merged with the crystal structure, becoming one with the ancient technology and the newly transformed ecosystem of Illyria. The assembled group watched in awe as the energy coalesced into thousands of luminous spheres, each one containing the essence of Hunter and Raxor, along with the accumulated knowledge of the ancient Illyrians. These spheres rose into the air, pulsing with potential, before scattering across the planet's surface. As the spheres descended, they offered a choice to both humans and Illyrians, the opportunity to embrace a new, hybrid form of existence. Many stepped forward without hesitation, eager to be part of this new chapter in galactic history. Dr. Chen, her face set with willpower, reached out to touch one of the floating spheres. As it merged with her, her body began to transform, taking on characteristics of both human and Illyrian biology. Chief Healer Vox followed suit, his form shifting and adapting to its new hybrid nature. Even Captain Reed, humbled by the magnitude of what he had inadvertently set in motion, approached a sphere with reverence. As he accepted the transformation, the wild desperation in his eyes was replaced by a look of profound understanding and peace. Others, like Admiral Hawthorne and High Chieftain Zorn, chose to remain in their original forms. They recognized the importance of maintaining a bridge between the old and the new, ensuring a smooth transition for those who might be hesitant to embrace such a radical change. As the transformation spread across Illyria, the hostilities that had divided the population began to dissolve. The newly hybridized beings possessed a deeper understanding of both human and Illyrian perspectives, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose that transcended their former differences. Even Elder Kraz and his followers, who had so vehemently opposed the changes brought by the symbiosis, found themselves moved by the beauty and harmony of the transformation. One by one, they laid down their weapons and stepped forward to join in the planet-wide metamorphosis. In the weeks that followed, Illyria flourished like never before. The hybrid population worked in perfect synchronization with the transformed ecosystem, achieving advancements in technology, art, and interspecies cooperation that had once seemed impossible. The planet rapidly became a beacon of hope for the galaxy, a shining example of what could be achieved through true symbiosis between different forms of life. As news of Illyria's transformation spread, representatives from Earth and other alien civilizations began to arrive, eager to witness the results of this grand experiment firsthand. A gathering was organized at the site of the original Harmony House, now transformed into a magnificent living structure that served as a powerful symbol of human Illyrian unity. As the delegates marveled at the wonders of the new Illyria, a shimmering apparition appeared before them, a manifestation of Hunter and Raxor's combined consciousness. Their form was translucent and ever-shifting, a visual representation of the fluid nature of their new existence. "Welcome," the apparition said, its voice carrying the echoes of both Hunter and Raxor. "What you see before you is just the beginning. Our sacrifice has ensured the success of the symbiosis, but it is up to all of you to carry this new way of being forward." The assembled crowd listened in rapt attention as the apparition continued. "Our essence now lives on in every part of Illyria and its inhabitants. We are the trees that reach for the sky, the creatures that roam the land, and the very air you breathe. But more than that, we are the potential for change and growth that exists within each of you." As the apparition spoke, its form began to dissolve into a shower of bioluminescent particles. These motes of light spread out over the assembled crowd, settling on their skin and sinking into their bodies. Each person felt a profound sense of connection wash over them, a deep understanding of their place in the grand tapestry of life. The apparition's voice faded, leaving a final message that seemed to resonate in the very air around them. The future of the galaxy lies in unity, in the blending of different perspectives and ways of being. Illyria is but the first step on this journey. Go forth and share what you have learned here. Let this be the dawn of a new era of cooperation and evolution for all sentient life. As the last of the bioluminescent particles faded away, the gathered delegates looked at each other with new eyes. They saw not aliens or strangers, but fellow travelers on a grand cosmic journey. The transformation that had begun with a chance encounter between a human soldier and an Illyrian female had set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the course of galactic history. With Illyria serving as a shining example of successful symbiosis, the stage was set for a future where the boundaries between species would continue to blur and evolve. As the delegates prepared to return to their respective worlds, each carried with them a spark of the transformative energy that now pulsed through Illyria's very core. The gathered crowd began to disperse, their minds buzzing with the implications of what they had witnessed. As they made their way back to their ships and quarters, excited discussions broke out about how to implement similar symbiotic technologies on their own worlds. The future stretched out before them, filled with possibilities that they were only beginning to comprehend. Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of Illyria, in the chamber where it had all begun, the ancient crystal continued to pulse with energy, Its rhythms were now in perfect harmony with the planet's transformed ecosystem, a silent testament to the profound changes that had taken place. And somewhere within that pulsing energy, the essences of Hunter and Raxor lived on, watching over the world they had helped to create and guiding it towards its next stage of evolution.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.